Welcome back to Dharma Dank, episode 5, Dharma Dank podcast, where I talk about creativity, media stuff, interpersonal relationships, spiritual advice, spiritual guidance, and mostly a guide, because it's better to think of all of us as guardians on a chain. Everyone is a guardian. There are not necessarily, there are people higher than you and lower than you and stuff like that, but you can always help somebody. You can always be helped by someone all the time. Sometimes people that are lower than you can help you. And it's better to think of us all as guardians on a chain without hierarchy, where, we're all looking out for the best interests. And remember also, if you're, wanting to help somebody who's like deep in darkness, never drag them out of darkness, because that can tend to backfire, because people that are stuck in darkness, they tend to hate themselves to a degree. And if you overexert yourself in trying to help them or change them, you're essentially telling their unconscious mind that they're a liar, that they deserve to be loved, which is something they don't fundamentally believe in necessarily. And you realize that enlightenment, it comes from the bounce from the bottom. It's not necessarily up on high where you're looking up and up and up for the holiest of holies. Actually, enlightenment begins if you can bounce from the bottom. And that bounce, that initial bounce, an individual has to do on their own, in a way, to start to realize the truth of everything. So it's better to just stay where you are in the light, in the spectrum of light that you're at. And when a person bounces from their darkness and is exiting the darkness, that's when you can point them in the right direction rather than trying to force them out, drag them out. And sometimes that can put someone further, deeper into their own darkness when you try to drag them out. Because when they fail, inevitably, almost certainly, while you drag them out, they will feel even worse than before, more of a failure than before, because even with help, they couldn't do it. So now they feel totally lacking on their own. And then you have to realize, if you're trying to pull people out of darkness, are you projecting something about yourself onto that person, hoping that someone was there for you when you were in a place like that? But you have to remember, you are the one that got out of that place if you were in such a darkness. Wasn't necessarily any individual. There may have been influences from different individuals, different gods, telling you, nudging you here and there, but ultimately you are the one that has to bounce in the first place, because we are all just guides. I am not a guru. And when I counsel folks, I'm just blowing on your flame, and as your flame lights up bright and it astounds you, you say, whoa, what was that? And I just try to remind you, that's yours. This is your flame. I'm just blowing on the motherfucker. And I would like to consider creativity and creation and art as a form of channeling. I think if you think of it as channeling, if you're blocked creatively and you're into spirituality and channeling and stuff, you have to realize channeling is a sort of creativity as well. It's an art making, and a lot of the best ideas come from that place, that intuitive place that emerges, that you just tune into rather than have to really cumbersomely, with great force, create. You're not necessarily doing that. So if you meditate, if you're able to meditate at all, a lot of meditation is about focusing on some other idea, maybe. But the reason you're doing that is so you can stop writing your thoughts and your ideas in consciousness. Like you'll have it. Thoughts will always be running in your mind, but do you have to ride those thoughts and believe in every thought that you have? Because people do, but that's a mistake. There was a thing I heard on NPR once about how a person was obsessed with murdering. He couldn't stop thinking about murdering. And he was eventually sent to this Buddhist-aligned therapist, psychotherapist, who specializes in this, because his original therapist had to quit on him because the original therapist was scared because this person couldn't stop thinking about murdering, right? And the person themselves, they were just like so upset about it. They hated it. They really wanted to get to the bottom of it. So they went to this specialist, and he brought that person to another room and opened up a drawer filled with knives and told the guy to pick up a knife. And the guy's like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. And then he told the guy to put the knife on the guy's throat. So the person that's obsessed with murder put the knife on the throat. And then he just let it stay there for a while. And he said, all right, put the knife down. And the guy put the knife down, and it just like broke through something, made the obsessive person realize that this was just a thought, that he didn't act upon it. And it's almost as if when you try to push it away, they get stronger. thinking and thoughts and running with them and believing in them. They get stronger the more you force them here or away. It's better to just try to detach from them and witness them, witness the thoughts and ideas. And initially they'll be coming out of your ego, when you start. But the more you practice meditation, the more the thought train starts to emerge from another place that is not necessarily from your ego, like more of a universal place connected to everything, unified to everything, and more abstract and spontaneous, and able to be generative in a way that does not involve your ego whatsoever. And when I say ego, I'm just talking about your body, mind, the mind that you have that helps you eat shit and fuck, that you were evolved with. But that is not necessarily the heart mind or Christ consciousness. And that is a privilege that we have because we're human, because we can ascertain the difference. So when you meditate more and more and are able to detach from the thinking and thoughts, you will notice new thoughts arising that are not from anything you've ever heard of or known. New imagery, ideas, metaphors that have never occurred to you before. You have no idea where they're coming from at some point. And that's when meditation and visualizing and channeling becomes more exciting and fun and freaky, a little scary sometimes, right? And in the spiritual world, people will channel messages from different beings this way by letting go of their thinking, their thought mind, and letting it just come forth. This was also done by the surrealists in their automatic writing practices, where they would just automatically write anything that comes to mind and doesn't even have to be an actual statement that makes sense. They would even collage words together from different publications and make up phrases that triggered something in the unconscious mind but didn't make sense. Like one of the most famous examples is the excellent cadaver or the exquisite corpse, and how that is a kind of a surreal image that triggers a lot of emotional things. So when you enter that meditative state where you're detached and things are emerging from out of nowhere, you can use those things as building blocks or materials to build up your medium, your creative force, and it will fuel you. It will fuel you with very little to no effort. I mean, there's some effort involved, but I'm saying it's not that heavy lifting, constructive, I got a deadline, I have to make this story work, it has to hit these beats, I have to attach it to these product placement ideas subtly, all these other excessive rules that can make construction very stifling. But when you're creative, there's so many things you can do, especially when you tap into that unconscious flow of thoughts and ideas. Let them emerge in your unconscious. David Lynch used to do this. He would use transcendental meditation to develop ideas and things like that. And as it emerges, as you relax and focus at the same time, which might seem very paradoxical, but it's also like taking a really good poop. Okay. That's just a way to realize it's something you are able to tap into, this ability to relax and focus at the same time. Just visuals, ideas, feelings, moments, people you've never seen before emerge, and they act and they do things, and you can just witness these ideas, images, and anytime you feel something arising from within your heart, your emotions or whatever, when you're witnessing these visuals and ideas, hold on to that, write it down afterwards, write about that experience, the image, the idea, and you can use that as a beginning talisman for a range of spells to put together some art, because art making is spellcasting. Social media is a great way to, it's a way, right, to get into an art practice, because a lot of making art and getting into flow is about getting into a practice where you can enter flow, where you're not feeling so constructive. So in writing or painting or dancing or all that other stuff, the more you practice, do a daily practice of doing the thing, even if it's not good stuff, even if it's not like anything actionable or presentable, you're getting into the practice of doing, which helps you enter a flow state better, because a lot of the best creativity or just highest level thinking comes from that flow state. I guess like good improv, if you ever witnessed that. People having a great debate, stand-up comedians doing incredible crowd work, athletes, and how they perform. It can seem magnificent, magical, ethereal, even psychic in a way sometimes when athletes enter that flow state and are able to do magnificent feats beyond what humans believe is possible. And that happens in the flow state. So get into a daily art practice if you can. And if you can't, if you feel like you can't, that is one of the few good things about social media. It can put you into a daily artistic practice, a daily creative mode and practice. If you force yourself to make a video a day, which is what a lot of people recommend if you want to monetize this at some point, but it will teach you constantly what making art is in just one medium. But the social media aspect is so compelling that it can actually put you into a practice, especially if you think you don't know anything about that. If you think like you never gone to art school, you didn't take many art classes, maybe you went to a trade school, and you work a lot, and you don't have a lot of time. For some reason, people make time for content creation, and that is art. It is a medium in itself. It is a way to find your voice and experiment and learn what it is to present imagery and ideas and words and spells across the internet to strangers, and how to make that compelling and how to make it work. Working with an audience that's there without many stakes except for maybe your mental sobriety and dopamine. Because of course, the dangers of social media are rampant and widespread. I actually think a lot of times there's a lack of dopamine in younger generations of people. Their lack of focus, ability to have any sort of grit seems to be related to the smartphone, in my opinion, or to hold ideas for longer periods, or even to, I don't know, they're not all like that, but I feel like a larger percentage of young people are like this than there used to be in the past. But it was always like this. It was probably like this more dramatically before cable, before the internet, before television, before radio. People used to probably think very deeply, writing crazy ass long books in the past, memorizing in giant tracts of information. And we all used to know like 20 phone numbers in our heads, if you were an elder millennial. And now I remember just like one phone number and my own. And people don't remember stuff. Your memory is given away to the smartphone, and your ability to stay stimulated is derived from the smartphone. So you lose dopamine. And that's the danger. I'm just going to call it out, call it for what it is. So if you do use social media to create an artistic practice, an artistic routine, I would recommend putting some rules on mitigating the negative aspects of social media. I heard of one, there's a video, there's this idea that went viral recently on social media where the rule is every time you open up the app, you must make a piece of content at the same time. That is a pretty great rule. It's very simple, and it forces you to motivate yourself before the instant dopamine to make something, before you get that gratification. Reward yourself with the instant dopamine. I think it's a good idea. It's clever. And personally, I have found that when I scroll through TikTok, a lot of times I become less inspired. It does the opposite effect of inspiring me. And I'll look, every now and then I get inspired. Okay, when I'm scrolling, I get some ideas now and then, but for the most part, it dulls my ability to make really new ideas and new concepts. Slows it down. So if I'm being honest, I'm sure if I consumed a quarter of what I'm consuming now on TikTok, I could probably generate more creative ideas, outside the box ideas. It's just you get so inundated, and it locks in certain ideas of content and how they're successful, and it makes you start to bias your brain to lean towards that. But I don't like that. I mean, I know in a business sense, strategic sense, that's a good thing to do, I suppose. But I think when you're spellcasting and you're a visionary, it's better to be as authentic as you can be outside of what other people are doing. And that tends to make your magic a little more powerful. So use social media to develop a voice as an artist, to have a daily art practice, and also know that this practice can help you later, because it can help you leverage your other skills to the world. Because if you get good at the art form, the medium of TikTok, you have to realize all of its spellcasting, all of it is storytelling as well. And your ability to tell a story, explain to people the story clearly and empathetically, you can use that to leverage against any skills you have. So say you are really good at putting up drywall, or I don't know, you're a tax accountant, or you own a dry cleaning business, or you're a barista. You work on the medium of social media, develop your things, and then you can promote that other aspect of your life, and it will be perceived as a master, that you are great at the other thing as well if you're great at this, because everything is storytelling in a way, even how we go about our lives and the stories we tell ourselves when we do our jobs, right? If you're a great storyteller, I think you can be better at doing any job, honestly. Because storytelling is also a form of shifting reality, reframing how you're seeing things. But we want to do that. We want to always try to shift reality if we can, and not use spirituality, just bypass away the negativity and the darkness. I think that's a terrible mistake, or acting like everything's great, because it's not. Everything is not great. There are a lot of issues. And spirituality as a form of bypassing this reality is, in my opinion, insidiously dangerous, and can really be heartbreaking for others too, that need people that really do stand up and fight for change. In Buddhism, it's not necessarily you're supposed to do that, like engage or anything, but Thich Nhat Hanh and there was other monks that believed in a more engaged Buddhism. And the Bodhisattva path is much more engaged, where you want to connect and you want to help others. And by spiritual bypassing and acting like everything's kosher, you will lose touch with how to connect with others, because that's a mindset that you can have all the time, but it doesn't grapple with certain realities. And reality without spiritual bypassing, it can be messy, it's unusual, and you don't want to avoid that or run from that. You want to make connections by honoring it and seeing the strange stories within the darkness of your lives as you experience them. Notice the stories that you tell, dealing with the darkness, and see if there's any greater truth within that story. And that's when you can see more the Tao, or the truth of everything, or how the opposite of everything can be true, and the truth is somewhere in between. It's the indefinable thing, but it's easier to find when you just look at the horror and see it in different ways, and see how you can use the way of thinking about it as a way to bring any sort of positive change into the world, but not just pretending it's not there or pretending it's not a thing. Taking why it is a thing and using that outside the box. So for instance, this is a more on the nose example, but when I was in my 20s, mid-20s, I was dating this woman, and I was working at a cafe, and everybody was friends. We all hung out at night and drank and living that hipster Brooklyn life in the early aughts. And then I found out this person I was dating cheated on me with a friend of ours, And what was the worst thing was everybody knew, and I was like the last person to find out. I sort of figured it out, and then I pretended I knew everything, and everyone told me. And I pretended I knew everything, and I talked to everyone about it. And then they all revealed to me everything they knew. And it was so vast and wide that I would just be like, yeah, I would pretend I knew, but I didn't, And I'd just dissociate and listen, smile. It was horror. It was horror, right? And so I quit the job. I went back to live with my parents for a few months. And then I came back to another area went to Bushwick instead of Williamsburg, and found another housing in Bushwick. That's when I first went to Bushwick instead of Williamsburg, because I lived in Williamsburg back in the day. So, but in that time, the few months I was away, I had so much resentment and anger and rage and disappointment. And I felt like if I just stewed on this and became a negative person, then they win in a way. Even though, I'm not saying they were trying to do this to me or anything like that. It was just, if I let the behavior of others being so nasty affect me and make me a nasty person too, then where's the joy in that? You know what I'm saying? So while I was away, I took that energy and I decided to transmute it into writing. And I wrote this screenplay about a woman but like the same sort of thing happens to her where she's cheated on, everyone knows. And I wrote a feature film in 2 months with all that rage. I just put in all the experiences and stuff in life and I just threw it in there. It was called Cat Lady at first, but because she rescues a cat in the beginning. And this is before I even heard of Save the Cat, the screenwriting book, which tells you like you can make a character unlikable, but like as long as they do something like save a cat or something in the beginning, you will love them and follow them on their journey. I didn't know that that was sort of the premise, and I happened to write a cat being saved. Anyway, I wrote that script and then I went back, I moved to a new neighborhood and I made some short films. I started writing scripts for other people. They asked me to write for them. I helped direct, and then I wrote this massive multiverse series and I had it made. We were trying to make it. It was sort of a failure, but I got a team of people together to work as hard as they could to make this thing. And we have like 20 minutes of footage of it. It's pretty humiliating to watch, but I jump-started a filmmaking career and I realized how good I was at it. I was better than a lot of kids that came out of grad school doing that stuff. Directing, writing, producing, all aspects of filmmaking, except for camera work. I'm not really good at that. So like 3 or 4 years later, a few years later, I'm biking down the street and I see that group of people and they're outside drinking. And I say hi to them with no hard feelings at all. I genuinely feel no hard feelings because I know all these new people. I'm having a great time. It was like a nice time. It was an idyllic period, early Bushwick, right? Gentrified Bushwick. But I looked at them and they were asking me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. And I'm working on this series now with this team. It's a lot of fun. And I said out loud, like out of nowhere, I was like, and I feel like in the last 6 months I've been single, got more done than the last 4 years of my life, right? And then the guy that, this woman cheated on me with, whatever, he was sitting there too. And he said, man, I've been single for 10 years and I haven't gotten anything done, And I look at all of them and I realize like, oh wait, they're all just still only baristas and drinking and making fun of people. And wait, is that all they were? Was that who I was hanging out with the whole time? Because I didn't make fun of people, but I did notice they made fun of people all the time, which I always thought very ironic because it's like the nerds in high school become the cool kids in Brooklyn, and then they ostracize others and then repeat the cycle. I'm like, come on, you shouldn't do that. That's silly, right? It's not necessarily because I was a nice person, but I just found it to be super hypocritical to be mocking others. But I knew it was normal. I knew it was normalized. So I never critiqued it or, took offense necessarily. I just personally don't do that, right? For my own reasons. I try not to make fun of people. Or at least there's a rule. If I make fun of you, you have to be genuinely laughing. If I'm teasing anyone, teasing any situation, the people involved have to be genuinely laughing, or I'm teasing myself. And because I could be roast master general, but I don't want to hurt people's feelings ever. So yeah, as you transition, change, sometimes you have to let go of things, identities that you had. It becomes its own death, and that type of death. There's like Ethereum, New Buddhism or whatever, where the idea is reincarnation was misinterpreted. It wasn't necessarily the traditional sense of the word. It was more how we change in our own lives, because even the Buddha went through massive changes in his one lifetime and in a way lived like 4 lives. And maybe that's what reincarnation is. That's when you realize new truths and you become a totally different person as a result, or you become closer to that highest self in you. So when I was younger, I always had this fantasy that at the age of 26, I will have my entertainment empire and I would be like a wonderkind, like Lena Dunham. And I had opportunities to kind of get there. And I think I always could have. But a lot of the reasons I missed the opportunities was a conscious choice to hold on to my integrity, or fear to make a certain choice. And when I was 27, I realized I did not get even close, right? I just started making stuff and it felt bad for a few months, but then I stopped. I let go of it. I let go of that identity of needing that. And maybe, I'm not sure how hard that was, but I saw others with that identity getting all the fame and stuff at 25 or whatever. And I just know it's not as awesome as it looks or people think it is. And I've seen people get that heat in their mid-20s and then lose it all, lose all the heat. And now they have nothing. They're struggling to survive. And all they know is that industry. So I'm grateful to be like closer to entering the industry at a much later age. Because frankly, maybe I was too insecure when I was younger to get famous, and it would have been pretty bad. But now I know myself enough that I'm relatively not insecure, right? It's there, it exists, but I don't let it affect me so much anymore. I've realized just being completely honest about everything is just a lot easier. And whatever opinions people have of me, it's their opinions that they've developed from categorizing reality a certain way. But usually if anyone gets to know me, I think they hopefully get to know themselves too a little better, and how there's an infinite depth to everyone and we shouldn't be categorizing each other this way. So anyway, point is, I let go of that identity, and there was ways that helped me let go of these identities easier. A lot of goal setting and identities like that, it's related to thinking you need to achieve certain things to be loved deep down. That's what it kind of is. But earlier in my life, I decided to commit to radical acts of non-transactional kindness because it seemed everything was transactional and I didn't want to live in that world anymore. It was too unsettling. So I decided to commit to non-transactional acts of kindness, like helping people move, strangers move, working on cover letters, resumes, things like that. And as I kept doing this for no reason, and it was something I did since I was a child, but I really started to contextualize it more as a spiritual act or exercise, or not spiritual, but existentialist exercise. It was a philosophical exercise to create a new reality. I started to realize, oh shit, I'm creating so much value in this universe that I am love. Not that I need to be loved. I am love. I'm a love greater than any love I can desire from another person. And when you become that way, it helps you clear out and just live every day, day to day, without having disappointments necessarily and regrets. And trust me, whatever fantasy you think winning is has a lot of nightmares to it that you are not understanding whatsoever. I've seen this time and again. I know millionaires. I know fucking famous people. A lot of them are going through a lot of trouble, and I will spend the whole day with like a multimillionaire that people admire and thank the heavens that I don't have their life. All the time this happens. Like, I'll be like, well, it would be nice to have this and that, but the way they live and the way their mind functions and how they're going about things is a type of hell that I have nothing to do with. And I don't live like that. I try to live so that if I did die tonight, if I got shot and I don't want to die, but it hurts and I don't like it, at the last moment I should be like, not like, no, please, it's too early. I got things to do. I've done enough. So I'm satisfied. Like, I'm going to keep going, keep doing things, but I don't feel like I didn't do enough. I already know I've done enough. And that makes it easier to keep going, actually. I don't have to chase anymore, at least. It's more of a generative force of love rather than seeking when you become love. If you commit to radical non-transactionalism here and there, like tithing 10% of your service skills, what you can do for strangers, never seeing them again, just to prove it's possible. Just like a FU to selfishness, right? Because selfishness and greed and stuff, that's just based on the illusion that we're totally separate. And I get it. In that sense, I get selfishness. It's not that I don't understand it. I just know that it is one way to see reality when there are multiple valid ways to see reality. Like, I can see it from 4 different angles, not just through selfishness. I can see it as fairness or unity consciousness, different things, right? And the selfishness at the same time. I can see it in all these different angles. But unfortunately, a lot of people see the world completely as separate through the lens of selfishness entirely. And they don't know that they secretly yearn for the feeling of not having to do anything to be loved, just being loved as they are. But that's not a love a lot of people know, so I don't expect people to understand this right away. It's something you gradually learn. I figured this out over a long period of time by accident, through circumstances. So in a sense, I've been very privileged in a karmic sense, right? Even though I'm not privileged at all. So remember, so you can always let go of these identities and do so and start again every time you get new realizations, to the point where the only identity you hold on to is living your highest self in the moment now. And social media is working within the world of symbols and ideas, which is spellcasting, which is magic. And magic that you create is the most powerful magic there is. So make magic if you can, and watch yourself, because there's a lot of traps along the way that can take you out and distract you and stuff like that. All right, so this podcast is a little longer than the other ones, which is cool. I had a good time with this one. I like talking about random topics and things like that. I'm gonna see if I get some guests on the podcast soon, just to talk about their life paths and journeys. And watch the TikTok channel if you ever get a chance, or Instagram, Dharma Dank Show on TikTok, where I have shorter vertical videos. A lot of this podcast will be clipped onto there too. And I'm doing a new type of video called a mantra wash. It's like brainwashing, but the idea is like having a mantra looping in the background with sound that you don't have to think too hard about. A mantra that takes you somewhere on a journey that you can do while doing dishes. It's like a mantra, washing your dishes, doing something you can listen to on loop while you're waiting online for something, while you're doing mundane, banal tasks, but you can get into a minor meditative state. And these mantra wash videos are designed to reprogram your unconscious mind. But it's not trickery. You can listen to the whole thing. You'll see where I'm coming from. It's a slightly different angle than what most people are teaching. And I'll have more meditation videos out there on that channel, on the YouTube channel as well. I'm going to record some meditations at this angle, because I do a lot of vertical, but I want to do horizontal meditation videos, mantra washes, things like that. But yeah, this was a good one. I'm not going to close out with a meditation this episode because it's gone on a bit too long. But catch me on the channels, on the platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and here. And also support us by getting the merch. We got some merch in a merch store now on Etsy. Vegan Cow is the store on Etsy. Links are in all the bios. And our merch is a lot of phrases that we've developed over the course of our teaching here, like future ancestral love, or honor your sacred space to suck. Things that, with designs handmade by Jasper Kim, these t-shirts I have seen in real life trigger huge conversations, spark curiosity, and are great icebreakers. They're really well designed, well made, and really eye-catching in my opinion. So it's a great way, if you get these shirts, you can support us and everything we're doing here at the channel, because we're not going to sell any digital courses. We're keeping everything, all the Dharma teachings is free and as widely available as possible, because sacred knowledge is collective, and it must go back to the collective in a free flow, because it comes from the collective. So anyway, remember everyone, all is love, love is all, and I'll see you next week at the Dharma Dank podcast.